Hello, Stephanie. Thank you so much
Uh,
for joining me today for our discussion. I just wanted to get an idea of what brought you to where you are now in the world of RFPs, public contracting, and tell us where your expertise is and what your background is.
sure. Hey, Jill. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today. So I come to RFP work in K-12 by way of grant writing in the nonprofit space. I worked with a lot of education-focused organizations and then found myself at a high-impact tutoring company during COVID. And so we were right on that cusp of when tutoring was exploding across the country, and we needed to figure out how to scale it and work with all the districts who were working to get their students back up to grade level. So I worked with a few edtech companies now over the years and decided to shift into working for myself as a consultant in the space. I found I really enjoyed the operational side of proposals and RFPs, as well as crafting a really strong narrative that helps to win RFPs. So I've helped various clients build AI into their proposal operations, whether it was their content systems, helping them draft workflows that integrate AI, and training programs. And so I'll say from all of that experience, before we get started here, that AI is not necessarily going to win you a school district contract, right? But if we're using it at the right time and in the right way, it can free up a lot of mental energy and time so that you can focus on the pieces of the proposal that will get you that win, right? The strategy and internal relationship building, all of those extra pieces that AI can't do, it'll free up the time for you to be able to do that. So I'm excited to chat about this today and, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I keep saying to whenever AI comes up in discussion, there's still a lot of fear around it and worry about, is it regulated and is it taking away jobs and all of that stuff. But I keep saying it reminds, well, not that I was around during the Industrial Revolution, but it reminds me of the Industrial Revolution or even just the internet and how it transformed industry, it transformed our lives. And AI
Yeah,
is like that. However, what it did also in a positive way is that it freed us up to do higher intellect, higher human like activities, such as,
yeah,
like you said, building those relationships. So I think that
mhm,
totally tracks with what I've been saying, that just use it as a tool and save your time to do something else that's much more exciting and interesting and that you're probably really good at too. So I love that you said
yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean, for a long time, I worked as a team of one in a busy organization. I was cranking out all sorts of RFPs, and I would have loved to have had a tool that could shred an RFP for me in 5 seconds flat versus spending 2 hours on one document, But now that's possible, and it would have improved my win rate because I could have spent more time working on an amazing executive summary and the writing, which is the part I'm most excited about. So there's a lot of great opportunities there now, especially for those smaller teams, I'd say. So I think I'd love to share a little bit more about specifics that small teams can use. So there are lots of tools out there. Some of them are pretty pricey that are built AI for RFPs, but some teams aren't ready for them yet. They're not always necessary at a smaller scale. So I think more of what I can offer today is the team of one, the team of two, some of the things that they can do to start integrating these tools so that they can save some time and some brain power.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, we have at RFP School Watch, we have so many different types of customers. And I've found by speaking with a lot of our customers that they might be in a huge multinational corporation and
Mm,
they still have a tiny team or even one person who's in charge of sorting through the bids that are coming through. Unbelievably, and it
yeah.
it usually is because the RFP, the public sector side is a smaller aspect of their business. They're dealing with in the private sector mostly. But yeah, and even when they are a couple people in a team. I just see a lot where there's just 1 or 2 people who are like the gatekeepers. So I think it applies for
Yeah,
small companies, definitely, but also larger companies. Have you seen that as well?
absolutely. Absolutely. I th- think that the proposal profession is often misunderstood and underutilized in a way. What is exciting about AI for me is that I'm seeing how it's making it possible for us to proposal pros to elevate ourselves to a more strategic level within an organization by not having to spend, 10 hours a week reading through and, vetting proposals that probably aren't a good fit anyway. Instead of spending an hour reading a proposal that has a red flag buried somewhere, on page 79, we can find that out right away. And then we're able to spend that time, able to better spend our time on strategic pursuits that better align with what our sales team is working on, what our product team is working on. It's a really interesting moment for us because it is shifting kind of how our work is done and what it enables us to do.
Yeah. So tell us more about these illustrious time-saving tips. I think everybody wants to hear about that. I guess in more,
Mhm.
maybe more detail of what you're talking about. I know you said getting that summary, putting the bid documents. I guess if you don't have the bid documents, it's a different story. But if you have them,
The bid documents, talk to Jill.
right, exactly. We actually do a lot. We have a whole team dedicated to finding bid documents for our customers. So, but once you have them, you
Yes,
can put that into any whatever tool you're using. It could be a low cost, like a Chat GPT or whatever, and it'll give you a summary. So, what are some other, or if you want to
yeah,
elaborate on that, or any other time saving tips, we'd love to hear them.
absolutely. So I think one of the best parts about shifting to a consultant model for myself is that it's given me a bit more time to chip away at some of these problems, right? There are some of these areas in my workflow that just created friction. And so I kind of went, one at a time. And the first one is getting that overview of an RFP and a quick shred to pull out all the major information. I noticed that some of the tools, like even Adobe, was already doing this for us when AI started to come around. ChatGPT was kind of doing it. I take this to the next level by creating a very specific set of instructions. And I like Claude. There's lots, again, you can use lots of the other low cost or free tools. I like the introductory paid level to Claude. I find I can get a lot done with that. So I have created a project in there, and my project is RFP shred. And in there, I've given it its one pager of directions. This is how you do a shred. I want these dates. I want to know who the contacts are. Here are my red flags. I want you to pull those out for me. Here is, an evaluation. I want to know what they're evaluating on and how they're scoring us. So tell me that information up front, and so I can have a pretty good idea of, off the bat, what I'm looking at. A one pager is a lot easier to ingest than 109 pages of an RFP. And so I find that even, going through and doing my first quick read through and shred could take me, 30 minutes to pull out the scope of work, pull out the scoring. So that's 30 minutes an RFP you're saving right there, if not more, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think the next thing, and this is when I started to really get nerdy and in the weeds with things, was having it run a go no go analysis for me. So I know that it's there's a lot of back and forth conversations that happen in organizations where, RFPs are saying, great, this is a proposal. Most of these things fit, but hey, we've got these issues and this is not going to work. Sales is going, but we really think we want to apply for this and we really think we should try anyway. What I say to my clients and what I try to institute is let's take some of the emotion out of this because I know it's tough. You're starting to get to know a district or you really want to hit your goals for that month. But we need to take some of the emotion out of the go no go decisions, and so AI can help us do that. I have my go no go matrix. It calculates everything from how much lift it's going to be, if there's notarizations that might be difficult, if there are any red flags or things that would prevent us from applying. It also calculates things like how good of a fit our product or our solution is to what the RFP is looking for. It will all I have to do, because I've already told the AI, hey, this is what my go no go matrix is. All I have to do is pop the RFP into that, and it will run it, and it will give me my score. So now I know, based on my standardized score, how that RFP is looking, and I'm gonna say that with an asterisk, right? You still have to
Right.
look back
Yeah.
and verify. But when you're staring down the barrel of 10 RFPs that have come in on a Monday morning, this is a really great way to get a handle on what's in your inbox. Um, and before you start to take next steps and kind of spend time where you may not need to.
Wow, that's really cool. And so for I know you do consulting with a variety of customers, so if you're doing this for them as well, then you would be creating a different matrix for every customer, obviously based on all the different I think we talked about it
Yeah.
before the call, how every industry has its own little idiosyncrasies. Like I recently spoke at a kitchen equipment dealer conference, and their world is very different from the construction people's world, and even the way the RFPs are put out and how you handle them, and all the different
Yeah.
states have different laws. Yeah, I'm just sort of going off on a tangent, but I just think it has to be individualized. Like anybody who's listening, if you're thinking about doing this, maybe Stephanie, you help your customers with that, right? Your clients to
Hmm.
set that up, because it really, from
Absolutely.
what I've learned from AI, is that yeah, and I think this is pretty common knowledge at this point, is like it really all comes down to number one, your input, the
Hmm.
parameters that you're putting into the system, and then obviously the checking its work and confirming.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that matrix, what you put in there is really important.
Yep. Right. And you're exactly right. You would put in your own legal requirements or product requirements if we're talking about SaaS or technology companies, your own state alignment statement requirements. Anything that pertains to your industry and to your products can be added to that compliance document. Or sorry, that matrix. I also wanted to mention a little bit of a hack here for checking. You can actually have AI create an agent that will check itself. And so you have one
Right.
project or agent, they're all kind of set up a little differently depending on which one you're using, doing the work. And then
Mhm.
you can have a second one come in that their entire job is to check the work. And
Right.
so if you're even having double check before you get to that point where you're having to do it yourself, it can cut down a little bit on some of those
Yeah, that's
hallucinations and errors.
right. It makes a lot of mistakes. It's like, how does it end up making all those mistakes and then being able to correct them? But yeah, no, that's a really important additional tool. I love that. So you
Yep.
talked about the one pager and then the go, no go. Do you have anything else about the go, no go? So you put it in the matrix, ask the, uh, the AI Claude or whatever you're using. Then it's going to
Yeah.
give you kind of maybe a percentile or whatever. It's somehow going to let you know, and then you check
Hmm.
it. You reread. How do you, besides the secondary Claude checking itself, is there anything else you do to make sure that it's, because you obviously don't want to miss something. If AI says,
Right.
oh, no, this is a no go, and then it turns out it would have been good.
Right. So I think, for example, if I run a go no go analysis and it says we're recommending no go because there is this red flag, I don't know, maybe they require an on-site person to be there at the school, and that's not your model. You're more of a virtual model or do things remotely. I would still go back in and check that RFP and find out, and you could ask it, "Hey, what page did you find this on?" So you're not having
I
to go
love it.
scrolling through 89 pages. But I would still go back and check, and then I read that section to find out, okay, what exactly is the context here? Is there any, way around it? Is there basically, what did it actually say? Again, it's trust but verify. I never
Uh-huh.
read an RFP linearly anyway. I'm going to read the entire thing, but I kind of approach it strategically based on each section. And so this allows me to get the cliff notes and then go back bit by bit
Right.
with
Well,
with
that's
a bit
cool.
a bit yeah, a bit more framing in my mind before I get there.
Wow.
And I learned more about this recently. Here in Richmond, we have a great organization it's called AI Ready, RVA, and they're training all sorts of different sectors on how to use AI. So I was at a conference recently. They were talking about how some tools can handle like a full RFP. It has a long context window, whereas some can't. And so it might not tell you that it can't. It might be reading the first couple of pages of your document, but then it'll start to hallucinate because it actually hasn't read and understood the entire thing. So you'll want to make sure that you are using a tool that has a long context window and that it can take your document in whatever version you have, whether it's a PDF or a docx, without actually having to copy and paste those in. That's another piece that's useful. And
Yeah.
then ideally, you want it to have some conversation memory because it's really frustrating when you're like, "Hey, remember that thing we talked about?" And it's like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about."
Yeah.
So this is why I really like to build things within projects in Claude because I can upload relevant documents, my matrix that it's referring against, my grounding documents, so I'm not having to reteach it the same thing over and over again.
Do you set that up for your clients? Is that
Mhm.
something? Because I feel like
Absolutely.
that would be so that again, like a time saver for a client who's working with you to just say, "Hey, Stephanie, can you just make this
Yeah.
work for me?" Because it sounds like
Yes.
there's a lot of details that are really important, and if you've never done it before, it could go
Yeah.
wrong. Not
Well,
to
and
say that
it
people
takes a
can't do
while
things
to
wrong.
learn, right? I kinda set out to be the consultant that I wanted when I was a small team,
Right.
in-house, proposal writer. I have time now to go and research these things and figure out the best way to do it. And so, yes, and I can absolutely come in and help a proposal writer who just wants to have these processes in place, but it's up to their eyeballs in proposal writing that they don't have time to do it themselves. So yes, as I say, I'm most comfortable with Claude, but I can certainly work with other tools,
Mhm.
um, and help to set up a smoother workflow, or teach you how to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, and it's always changing too, that's the thing, like, what we can do now, 6 months
Yeah,
ago, we couldn't necessarily do, and it's it's amazing. It's kinda easy to forget how quickly things are changing, but when you look
right,
back,
right,
yeah, so it's something that definitely, again, takes that extra time to keep on top of these not everybody has the time or the desire
right, right,
to do
right.
that.
Right, because there are some, you're gonna have to try and fail before you learn some of this stuff. I heard that you could use Claude Voice to work on a document, to help you edit a document, and so I wanted to try it out. I was out in the yard the other day, and I'm like, I have a blog actually that I'm working on, and I wanna do another run through of it. So I copy pasted it into my Claude app and I'm on my headphones while I'm taking care of things outside. And halfway through, I'm going, this doesn't sound very familiar. And it had started out with the blog I gave it, and then it decided to make up a new one for me to edit halfway through. So I had
Wow.
to stop. I'm like, oh gosh, there goes, 15 minutes. But at least I was already accomplishing something else. It wasn't a big deal. But when you are on a deadline and you are super busy, it's frustrating to have to to overcome those hurdles. So
Yeah.
I finally figured it out. It wanted an upload directly from the document, and I had to be very specific about just use this document instead of copy and pasting into the chat.
Uh,
But yeah, eventually it worked out, and then I was able to finish up my yard work and tidying up outside while I got the blog edited. And for
I love
me, I
it.
really like to work in voice because it reads it back to me, and I'm able to hear how something is, something sounds and jumps off the page. It's a great way to catch,
Yeah.
errors or weird, moments in the copy that you might not have caught on screen. So
This is the, work at home model too, doing your yard work while editing a blog post. There might be some people who are in an office who think, how can I do that one?" I'll be working and, I don't know, maybe go to the gym at lunch or something, but,
yeah,
I mean, it really is an example of how, as humans, we've created this tool that everybody's afraid of, and I'm not saying that's not warranted. I think there's a lot that needs to be worked out with AI, but
yeah,
this is elevating us to be able to do. I mean, I don't know, is the Industrial Revolution what allowed us to be able to fly? I don't even know about history well enough to even maybe say that statement, but I have a feeling that it had something to do with it. So, what's next for us? Because we're now our lawns can be tidier.
right. Well, yeah, I'm going to appeal to the parents out there, but this allowed me to take care of a few chores in, an hour I had before I picked the kids up. And then I got to spend a little bit more quality time with them instead of having to do that while they were home. I think it
Yeah.
allows me to better use my time, I think, and
Yes.
have more quality time.
Definitely. Now, you had mentioned earlier before we started the compliance matrix. So tell us more about,
Yes.
and I know you do our blog post, some of our blog posts, and I've seen this
Yeah.
also there as well. And so tell us your
Yeah.
wisdom about that. Any tips would be, I'm sure, very valuable
Yeah.
for people listening.
So we know the compliance matrix is the holy grail for getting through an RFP response and making sure that you've hit every single requirement in that RFP. We also know the requirements can be hidden and peppered throughout an RFP, and it's not always a straightforward thing. So this is another really great use, I think, of AI to cut down on some of the time that we spend compiling, creating the compliance matrix. What I'll do is I'll tell it to extract every requirement statement and then place it into the compliance matrix template. So I already have a template. I use it every time. And again, it's something that I upload or I I have my AI work within my foldering system, and I'll say, "Hey, the compliance matrix is there in this folder. This is where I want you to work." And so then it'll pull out, okay, well, in section 2.2, it says all vendors must be registered to do business in the state of Illinois, and it'll break it down. I'll also tell it not only do I want requirements, I want the must statements, I want the shall statements, I want the nice to haves and the optionals. Give me everything in there, everything that we would normally put in our compliance matrix. And so it will go through and do that work for me. It's actually pretty good at finding those things out.
Hmm.
Um,
That
I would definitely have this double check its work and I would read back through to make sure.
I think it bears repeating how important it is, because if you just missed one little form that you didn't sign, some, disclosure or who knows what, or you just didn't have that one little thing and that's necessary.
Huh?
They are looking for. I liken it to, if you're hiring someone and you get 200 resumes, you're basically at this point, you the first pass, you're just trying to eliminate as many people as possible from your pile.
Exactly.
I think that I mean, there are sometimes we do have people who reach out to us, agency representatives, who are like, "Is anybody bidding on our bid?" So there are, they do.
Interesting.
Yes, sometimes people reach out and they're saying, like, "Hey, the bid is closing and we noticed, blah, blah, blah." So, um, but I think for the most part, they probably get a lot of applicants and they're looking for a
Yeah.
way to eliminate them. So that compliance is so, 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 so important. This is
Yeah.
probably more geared toward your non APMP certified proposal managers, people who are, we have a lot of customers, they run the business and they're also doing the RFPs. So
Mhm.
little details like that can be very helpful. And something like this whole suggestion of just using AI as this tool, I think is
Yeah.
incredible. And also your advice is to read through the document, even if AI has taken it apart and done all these cool little things for you, to read the entire, if it's a go,
Mhm.
read the entire
Yes.
document, I think at least once, if not
Yes.
twice or 3 times. I guess you're
Yeah.
saying if you have time, but you don't recommend
Yeah,
not
what
reading it.
I do, yes, exactly. The only time I recommend not reading it is if, like you just said, you have 200 applicants. If you have 200 proposals, let's get the ones eliminated that are not gonna be a fit as quickly as possible so that you don't have to spend your time there. And
Right.
then as you get, you hone in on the good opportunities that are in alignment with what you do. These are great tools to speed up the process, and you still should be reading the RFP.
Right, right. Yeah. Okay. Well, the takeaway is it's a lot of work. However, we have this amazing tool that wasn't available to us maybe, I mean, to this degree, probably 2 years ago, but definitely 5, 10, 15 years ago. So use
Yep.
it. Use this
Yep.
tool because
Yep.
other vendors are using it.
Right.
It's sort of
Exactly.
like if you're not using it, you're at a disadvantage because your resources are not allocated properly.
It's funny. 2 years ago, I would have said almost no one was using it. People are starting to figure it out now. I mean, yes, if you aren't using it, you're behind. If you don't at least understand. And unfortunately, companies are going to start making hiring decisions that way too, right? Their RFP teams are not getting bigger, but they are being expected to crank out more and more. And so this is the way to do it. The other big asterisk here is that as exciting as it is to be able to put proposals together more quickly, you want to make sure that you're not putting low quality proposals out more quickly, right? Again, take these time savings. I recommend taking the time savings and using them to increase your quality, make your proposal more aligned and more tailored to each
Mhm.
specific district and the challenges that they're dealing with, um, instead of just putting more and more general proposals out there that you're not going to
Right. Yeah. So use the time that you save wisely, not only to make sure your yard is cleaner and you get more time with your children,
win.
but also to improve the quality of maybe the research that you're doing, obviously the
Uh,
writing and making sure you have that compliance checklist complete. And it just, yeah,
yeah,
that makes so much, that is how you, not only are you saving time, but you're going
yeah.
to improve the quality of what you submit. That's very important.
When we're
Yeah.
not always being so reactive, we also have the chance to work ahead or to work with our teammates, potentially on the sales team and help
Mhm.
them figure out, okay, which proposals are coming due, which contracts are ending at a district, who are their current, who's the incumbent, is there somewhere where we should be starting to have these conversations. So again, these are areas where we can elevate ourselves as a proposal professional because we know a lot of information through RFPs. So being able to harness that to support your organization, the sales organization, with some of that saved time is also really, really
I
great.
love it. It sounds like our next podcast interview should be about that.
Yes, I
Being
know we could talk
proactive.
forever.
Well, so any final thoughts? Anything that you feel like, was not said that important? I know you covered so many just super key points. I don't know if there's anything else.
Gosh, let's see. I don't think so. I think, as if you are getting curious about AI in your RFP process, I would prioritize where your biggest challenges are, where your bottlenecks are, what's causing friction in your day to day, and tackle those first. And if you're not sure how to tackle them, feel free to give me a call.
Yeah, I love
uh,
that. Instead of just
I would love to help.
finding problems to solve with AI,
Mhm.
what's the bottleneck? Always identify the bottleneck and then see if you can apply AI tools for that. I love that. That's a
Yeah.
great final note. And yes, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, I need help. Stephanie's amazing, as you can tell. So reach out. Thank you so much, Stephanie,
Okay.
for having this conversation with me today. It was very interesting and enlightening for me, and I'm sure for people listening.
Great. Thanks for having me.